Hi, everybody. For those who I have not met personally, my name is Jacob Smith. I'm with an awesome local company called Altimetrik, and I run our Collider program. So Altimetrik is a local software services firm with a global presence, actually headquartered in Southfield, Michigan. We work on digital transformation, helping large-scale clients basically stay ahead of the curve with technology change and drive innovative solutions. And the Collider project is a physical space downtown, also now a virtual space, where we are driving connection between technical professionals and helping to lift up the whole tech ecosystem through connection, learning and growing and all types of good stuff. So with the social distancing in effect, we have shifted our normal cadence of hosting several physical events per week, including a weekly cybersecurity meetup, actually, with our special guest today, Xavier. We host two different cybersecurity meetups normally, just so that everybody knows, both DC 313 cybersecurity and hacking meetup, as well as the MySec information security meetup. Those are on alternating Wednesdays once hopefully the world goes back to normal here. But in the meantime, we are going to be hosting lots of exciting, or at least, you know, I happen to think it's exciting, I'm slightly biased, virtual content. And so today, what we are going to do is we've got a very special guest, Mr. Xavier D. Johnson in the house, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of years here and also collaborating with professionally in the capacity I just mentioned. And today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity for remote employees. So basically, everybody in this room, I imagine in some way, shape, or form, either has had experience previously working remotely or your company like scrambled last minute within the last few weeks to figure out remote working. But either way, I imagine that there is some insight that Xavier can share here today about things that you may be overlooking if you're normally remote working. And if your company scrambled to remote work, I imagine there's even more opportunity for vulnerability and for misses there, just given the kind of lack of familiarity with remote working. So that's the topic today. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. Oh, I should introduce you more fully here. So Xavier D. Johnson, so local hacker extraordinaire. I think you mentioned you just wanted to be introduced as a hacker, but I'm not going to do that. You're also a cybersecurity professional. You are an entrepreneur. You run a number of local startups and the co-star of a awesome YouTube series called How I Got Hacked. With local legend Tom Lawrence, who's also in the chat room here. Say hello to the people, Tom Lawrence. Hey, Jacob. What's that? Yeah. So that is we're really excited to have your perspective here today.
I am happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So just to kick things off, I guess at the highest level, if you could just kind of speak to when you think about remote working and people kind of scrambling to work remotely, what maybe I don't know how to frame that, but what are kind of the most common pitfalls that you see people overlook?
So I think that the best way to even approach the topic would be to add on to the intro in a sense, right? Outside of all of those things, I'm a maker and I started off as a programmer. So as a programmer, a lot of us, we sit behind a desk, we sit behind a keyboard, we actually get clickety-clackety keyboards and light up mice, and we make our environment really, really comfortable. And then we go into work and we don't necessarily have the same thing. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we have bosses that are really cool and let us have a culture, but other times not so much. And we kind of lust after that ability to be able to work from home, right? That seeing your own environment and being able to kind of not, quote unquote, not put on pants to come to work, right? Be it I have on pants. Hey, you know. So, you know, with that being like the stereotype, quote unquote, this has kind of been like a dream of some people in the industry, right? But one of the things that comes along with being a programmer and entrepreneur is being involved with a lot of different environments and a lot of different languages and a lot of different, I've been lucky enough to work a lot of different places. And they all take remote work to a different level. So in a startup environment, remote work is very much so normal, right? It's how we kind of think about it on the day-to-day right now, where it's just like, I'm just going to do my job. I almost have to be remote right now, right? Like, I'm just going to do my job by all means. That's how it is when you're, in startup mode. If you're lucky enough to have some money, you may be in a co-working space. But otherwise, a lot of times, the basement, the garage, the front room, the kitchen, that's your office at any given time. So you're highly mobile, right? And you don't have a whole lot of sensitivity around what you do. You don't have any intellectual property. You don't have any, business intelligence. You don't have anything worth hacking or taking. If someone compromised you today, you'd be like, meh, I could probably like go off and do something else or still launch this. And it's such small impact that like no one would even care. It's sad enough, even if it's larger, people probably wouldn't care, but that's neither here nor there. The mind frame and the mindset of those people are completely different than someone who is, working at General Electric or General Motors and, have these things like safety and intellectual property theft and corporate espionage to think about, because
and a team to help.
Right. And you got to think about the dynamic and the shift of where this data is now going to be flowing through. Before, at GM, they had their own infrastructure. They don't adopt any cloud. They have their own data centers. You get on their VLAN, right? You get on their VPN, you get in that LAN, and that's it, right? If you do work from home, you connect through the VPN and you go back to the LAN. All the data from the cars, it goes into the LAN, right? Everything is supposed to be contained within their own little world. So when you think about remote work, that means that you're taking all of these different endpoints, you're taking them out of the building and you're making them go back into the building. Now, if you're someone like GM, you may have thought through this because you're in the business of mobility. So you're already thinking about endpoints being highly mobile. Is fairly easy for you to wrap your mind around that concept, right? But if you're someone like GE, who may have that exact same network infrastructure, set up, mind frame, thought pattern, right? But then all of a sudden you're forced to go remote. That's when all of these new chinks in your otherwise stable armor appear. So I think that's where we find ourselves as a lot of quote unquote, in between critical and non-critical employees, right? People that, may work on CAD files that will build bridges, or, CAD files that will go into planes and made for plane parts. If those files get poisoned, even if that engineer actually does everything right, if those files get poisoned in transit, then, something that was otherwise reviewed could now be potentially poisoned upstream. There's a whole entire new line of attacks called supply chain attacks, right? And they can come at you from a whole different number of ways. And all of these different clients and softwares that we used to use internally, that we had these firewalls around, that we had this defense in depth thought through, and all of this stuff. And you guys had a business continuity plan and an incident response plan. So you're like a shining star. But now your mode of operand changes immediately before you get to update the IRP, the incident response plan, before you get to update the BCP, the business continuity plan, before you get to update the documents that say what files are deemed confidential and what are not, and what should be able to be on what type of network, right? You're starting to have to make decisions out of need versus decisions out of strategy. And in cyber of all types, security, building, whatever you want to call it, that is terrible. You have to take very, very small and slow and iterative steps. And I think moving forward, people will have a pandemic plan. It'll be a part of their BCP if they don't already. But we're starting to see a whole lot of new attack types come out of that quote unquote supply chain emphasis, right? So the emphasis on attackers wanting to be able to go and get that data. Now they're thinking, okay, what are some of the most popular tools? I wonder, what would a webinar with a security expert, what software would they use to run that? Oh, Zoom. And guess who got pwned? One of the earlier pwns, right? The public pwns. And I love when people get publicly pwned because it at least lets us know that they take it seriously enough to let us know. There are tools.
Will you define pwning real quick?
Pwning is being hacked, right? So owning someone with a P, it's like, it comes from hacker culture, I guess, video game culture. Pwning someone is like when they spawn and then you shoot them, and then they spawn somewhere else and you shoot them, and then they spawn somewhere else and you shoot them. It's like in the video game, they can't even like get a win. That's how it is when you're, operator, so to speak, someone who's on the red team. You're like, man, the blue team can't even keep up, right? All those pretty PF sense firewalls and all that stuff that they didn't have VPN enabled, onto, they now have to rush and enable VPN on it. Can they misconfigure that stuff? Yes, of course they can. And as red teamers, do you think we not run PF sense? We run PF sense. We know the configuration. So we go and we look for those misconfigurations, and then we go and we get the data that we're looking for.
Cool. So taking this for folks in the room that might not be as technical, a point. Well, first of all, I wanted to just highlight when we were kind of prepping for this conversation, you mentioned something that I thought was really fascinating. I am not a cybersecurity professional, so I'm speaking from that perspective. Yes. I had asked you, given what you're describing, have we seen an increase of attacks already during quarantine? And your response was basically that we don't know because typically there's a lag. Can you explain that quickly?
Yeah. So right now, the importance of staying secure today doesn't necessarily affect you today. So attackers on average dwell between 4 to 6 months in your environment before you know that you've been compromised. So this is, people that actually find out they've been compromised. There's a lot of people on a personal level that never really realize or find out they've been compromised because they don't use the next gen, polymorphic antivirus detective systems, right? They don't have strong firewall. So they don't even know that they've been compromised most of the time. And for the corporations that do end up finding out that they've been compromised, most of the tools, if you look on the market, log for about 90 days. So a lot of the times when those incident responders get there and they want to go look at the logs, they're gone. And that's on average. There's some outliers on both ends.
So for folks in the room, so what you described is really interesting to think about for much larger companies. For folks in the room that might represent either small companies or startups, or just medium-sized, like nonprofits or other companies that just don't have a highly, maybe the remote rollout, resource constraints on the human side, and maybe the rollout is being led by non-technical team or something like that. Can you just kind of speak to from that perspective as well?
Yeah. So the goal of this is to help you stay secure, right? And so I'd imagine that a large portion of our viewers right now represent that majority, right? Yep. There's only so much small time business, right, that actually have a cybersecurity need, and there's only so much big time business that actually have a cybersecurity need. Then there's this huge middle piece of people that do anywhere between 100,000 and 10 million, and they're considered medium businesses, right? They put the M in SMB. And so medium businesses are extremely juicy, right? They're a big, slow moving target for attackers. So some of the things that you can do to help yourself stay operationally secure, right? And when I say operationally secure, we're talking about, your actual operation. So what is your operation, right? If you work at a software company and you think about everything that it takes to build that piece of software, I'm talking about from the computer to the actual antivirus that runs on the computer, the actual keyboard that's connected to the computer. Every single thing is what's needed is what's needed to build that piece of software is considered your operation. So operational security would mean that you're applying security to every single facet of your operation, right? This includes how you handle your records from in HR, how you handle your the software validation and testing. All of that is needs to have some type of security wrapped around it for one reason or another. Maybe it's for making sure that you don't have intellectual property theft, or it could be making sure that an attacker that's moving laterally isn't able to exfil data, right? They look extremely the same, right? Extremely alike. So staying secure in that arena, I would say most people could take no matter what role they have in companies. You follow a few simple tasks, right? A few simple things will get you a very long way. Think twice before you click a link. I don't care if it's given from a trusted person. I don't care if it comes from the bank. You think twice before you click a link. A lot of the times people click links blindly, especially ones that are hyperlinked and say this link with the underline on it. And then they just go, oh, I want to get the file from that link. Also, there are people that look for pirated movies. There are people that look for pirated books. There are people that look for pirated games. You want to think about when you're going to go click on those links to be able to hunt down whatever file you're looking for, the types of things that happen when you click that link, right? So
what's an example of something bad that could happen when you click a link?
Something bad that could happen when you click a link?
Yeah.
The very worst thing that could happen is your computer gets encrypted entirely. And then from
you could get locked out of your own computer?
Yes, and all of your files. And all of your files can get locked up too. And worst case is that infection spreads from that computer to other computers as well, like a worm.
In a network.
In a network, and potentially out of that network using Wi-Fi.
So while I ask the next question, for folks that are in the room, not being able to see everybody and like ask the audience questions is really new for me. So I'm just curious if everyone could just post in the chat, like what perspective you're coming at this conversation from. So are you with a startup? Are you representing a corporate entity, a nonprofit, just kind of at the highest level, just so you can get a sense of kind of how to best gear the conversation towards folks. Obviously the Q&A will help with that as well, but if you just want to drop that in the chat, that would be really helpful for me. And then Xavier, if you could just dive into like, I'm just personally really curious to know. So as someone working remotely for a larger team that does have some resources around this, but most of my background comes from startups. So I know that if I was at a smaller company that we would have just been like, I know how to, normally this works for me. Could you kind of just give me a sense, like from a hacker's perspective, what is my vulnerability? Like what could you do to me?
Okay. So
you just mentioned you could encrypt my computer.
Right.
What else might you be looking for? What other vulnerabilities? What can you do to me? What's the risk?
I would say misconfigured router, right? So people that have set up certain ports to be exposed for their PlayStation or Xbox or PC gaming or Minecraft server. So those exposed ports, they could be very, very dangerous. So make sure that you check your router logs and make sure that you keep your router's ports closed if needed, unless they're needed.
Could you explain that in a bit more detail?
So like your router, the thing that comes from Comcast, it has a management interface, and a lot of the times people will open up ports for one reason or another. Could be a piece of software needs it, could be a device on the network asks you to in the instructions, or it could be that a compromise happened at some point through someone else's device that has gotten on your network, and they actually went through and opened up the firewall. Right. So in the router, they, you want to make sure that they, have some type of, hardening there, making sure that they don't have every port open or any port that they don't think they need open. Or if they don't think they need any ports open, they should close all the ports. There should be no ports open.
And this is like my home router right
This is
now.
your
Like
home
I'm working
router.
from home right now. I should check this like immediately after this.
Immediately after this, making sure you don't have any ports open. That's really,
Okay.
really important. Turn off UPnP. Make sure you turn that off. And that is universal plug and play. And a lot of routers have that because it's what allows different devices to become discoverable on the network through that protocol. So then as an attacker, I'm going to use that to be able to, from external, leverage that service to be able to map your entire network and potentially compromise something that doesn't have strong security because it wasn't expecting to be on the internet. See, these are things that are affecting you at home, right?
Yeah.
So you also want to be aware of pieces of mail that comes to your door. Every piece of mail should be suspect. Anybody could drop a piece of mail into your mailbox. I know some people live in places where they have a locked mailbox. That's fine. But there's also places where, you could just slide things into mail. So you want to make sure that any mail that you get, it could be coming from anyone. It may not necessarily be your insurance provider. It may not necessarily be the state of Michigan or the really be the IRS. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to those types of things.
On that note, something that I've really picked up again as a non-technical professional sitting in on some of these DC 313 and the different cybersecurity meetups, like I never really thought about how much of hacking is not typing code.
Right.
Hacking, as far as I'm understanding it, is as much about tricking people into giving up information as it is about anything else.
Yes.
So something just to really consider is, somebody asking for your social security number posing as the IRS is also hacking. It's not always somebody, with ones and zeros scrolling on their computer like in the Matrix.
Most of the time it's not, right? The easiest way that I'm going to breach any company is through the employees of that company. So
just
if
asking
I'm
information, like
if I'm if I'm a motivated attacker, I'm going to slowly get bits of information from a number of people over a period of time. I'll be persistent. It may take me 2 or 3 years. I'll get in. And so that's the reason why webinars like this is so important, to remind people that you are the ultimate defense beyond any antivirus, beyond anything. You are the ultimate defense because you think twice before you click links. You think twice before you plug in thumb drives, even ones that have been mailed to you, devices that are supposedly blocking ads that have been mailed to you, right? There's a number of ways that people target human beings, especially ones that are working in corporations that may have a harder shell around them, like GM, like Cisco, like Apple or Facebook. These places are so hardened that even some of the best hackers, the only way in would be to get employed because you're like, yeah, it's the only way I'm going to get on that network is if I go get a job there. And don't think that that's not happening, right? So think twice even about the people that you interface with on the day-to-day that are your coworkers. It's very easy for me to spoof a phone number and maybe, send you a text message that entices you to click a link or that tells you to be at a certain place at a certain time. These things can be used for me to be able to compromise not only your mobile phone, but also intercept communications by putting you at a place and time. And putting things like Wi-Fi pineapples, which are rogue routers, which we talked about earlier, that will trick your phone and your devices into automatically connecting to it. And then I'll be able to then access your client or your laptop, so to speak, that in ways that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So you got to think twice about everything as a human, because sometimes I need you as a human to do something to bring me the machine that I already know I can compromise, because otherwise you're hardened, right? So, it definitely, it's things that I would say think twice about everything is the end all be all for most people that work at companies, from the files that you open, the emails you receive, the phone calls that you receive, the mail that you open, the devices that you plug in, the networks that you connect to, and all the way down to the people that you socialize with.
Got it. And so this is, I mean, this is a lot of information, and we're covering this in a extremely quick crash course here. You know, that we're going to try to fit into a 45-minute session. I'm curious if there's like any beginner crash course material that you can recommend that's geared towards non-cybersecurity professionals, out of
You know
curiosity.
what? I will be honest with you. That is a huge gap. I think that me and Tom actually just found a
Yeah.
niche right here live. But I will say that the LifeLock infomercials, I know this sounds really cheesy, but the LifeLock infomercials, those are really, really good for that and like you know, American Greed. That's another good one too.
Interesting.
Right. But those are like just to kind of, otherwise you would have to look up the criminology behind the scams and the schemes and the hacks that happen.
Yeah.
But there isn't any, I would say, how not to get hacked for dummies. You get what I mean? Not calling anyone dummies, but like the book series,
Sure.
Shakespeare for
Well, maybe
dummies.
maybe
Right?
we need to do a little series here.
I think
Break this
so.
down in a
I
bit
think
more
so.
detail.
Because everyone, as you can see, I haven't told you to go and like install the latest AV or do any of that stuff. You won't need to have antivirus, for one, if you never plug your computer into the internet, but for two, if you never open up any ports from the internet and then you never go and browse suspicious places. If you get a brand new computer and you put it on a network that has no firewall rules inbound and you go to Facebook, you won't get hacked. It's okay, right? You still got some time to go get AV. But if you're going to do business on that computer and that's your works, computer, you want to make sure that it has antivirus because you're going to be getting emails from people that you may not be able to trust.
Cool. We have some questions from the group before, or yeah, I guess we could just dive right into that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the text questions, Xavier?
Yep. Well, I can see the webinar chat.
Yeah. So
Okay, cool.
we've got here from first. So how secure would you say that using VPN and DNS are, either separately or combined?
So I would say that DNS is extremely important. If you don't know what your DNS settings are, just go and check them and set them to something that is trusted. You can be hacked through DNS. If you set your DNS settings to my DNS server, I can see traffic that you're going to. I can actually see what you're browsing. So DNS is extremely dangerous. You want to make sure that you have it set up to at least be Cloudflare or Google. Those are my two that I suggest people. I know people get icky about Google, but hey, a lot of the service providers that you're using work with Google, so you can't really get around it. And then VPN, it is very important to remember that the data that flows through that VPN is only as secure as the VPN provider. So if your VPN provider used to have that really, really hardened network that was ultra secure and the data center that was up 24/7, it's kind of hard for them to operate right now at scale because of COVID, just legally. So you want to think about the potential for them to be breached in this new way of operandis. That could be your data flying out the window right there. You also want to think about how many of these VPN providers are owned by Big Brother, either from our country or other countries. So it depends on the kind of business you do as well. If you are using something that's vetted in open source like OpenVPN, you have less to worry about, especially when you talk about going to your corporate VPN. A lot of firewalls, F5 and the big IP stuff, the big players like Cisco, ASAs, people that allow you to have VPN connectivity typically will build their VPN stack on top of OpenVPN and track changes and security updates. And then people like PFSense, right? They would just use the OpenVPN, right? OpenVPN is a VPN that is open source, but you will have to own the servers to actually make your own VPN network. So this is not something for external.
Okay. And then we have another great question here from Diane. So when evaluating plugins, do you have any tips for verifying that something is legit before downloading it and running it?
Yes. So plugins already make me a little bit scared when it comes to computers because I never find myself needing a plugin to get anything done, either business or personal. So it always makes me feel like, okay, what is the plugin for? If it's coming from your manager, right? And are you sure that that's your manager? Can you get your manager on the phone? Can you verify that that's your manager on the phone? Okay, now ask your manager, what does this plugin do? Can you share a screen with your manager to see what the plugin does? If it's like core to your job and you're using your job's computer, right, you still may want to ask these questions but not go so far. But if it's your personal computer, you want to make sure that this plugin isn't doing anything that's going to potentially lift your credit card or your social security number or those types of things. So plugins get really dangerous, especially browser plugins specifically. They get very, very dangerous. One good way to vet plugins, if you're going to go and get extensions, so to speak, one really good way to vet them will be look at the reviews. The more reviews, the better. Especially if it's 5-star, 4.6-star, 4.8-star. Don't go and get a buggy plugin. Make sure that it's still supported when you're looking. So if you're looking at the description of the plugin, make sure that it's been updated in the last 2 or 3 months, that it's still alive and that someone actually cares about it, that it's being maintained. That's really important because the landscape changes and they may have a vulnerable library in them. So these are some of the things that I would look at immediately when considering plugins if necessary.
Got it. Since I put the tantalizing bit into the description that I posted, I feel compelled to ask. Zoom trolls are all over the news. Yes. They've really come to the forefront in the quarantine news here. First of all, what is a Zoom troll for folks that might not have heard about that? And then Ryan and I were discussing, like, what is it, just that it's annoying and potentially offensive and whatever else, or is there actually a real danger? Can folks get into your system, steal your credit card, stuff like that?
All right, so I'll be clear here. Zoom troll is something that is new to me, so I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of information on it, I'll be honest. But I will say that a person that joins a Zoom meeting that was not invited and then starts to say offensive and or bigoted things, right, for whatever reason that they have, is fairly reflective of the internet. I will be transparent. That is internet culture at its finest. And one of the things that you could do to help protect yourself from the internet is make sure that you have password protected your webinar, right, so that everybody can't just join as attendees or panelists, so that everybody can't just, make your meetings set up so that you have to have the link to be able to join, or maybe you have to have a pin to join, right? I know in Microsoft Teams, there's a allow feature where there's people that have to wait in the lobby if they weren't actually originally invited to the meeting. So looking at those types of things will be extremely smart. Also, the big thing with Zoom, beyond just the trolls, where uninvited people can get into private Zoom events. That's a really big problem. So, but I think the bigger problem beyond even just that is the fact that Zoom allows for UNC path injection. So basically, a UNC path is a path to a specific file on a Windows machine and or just file server that is remote, right? So that means that it's elsewhere and or local. But nevertheless, there's a certain way that you write this path out, and there's a certain way that your computer communicates when that path is passed. And most quote unquote thick clients, like Zoom is considered a thick client. Microsoft Word is considered a thick client. Your browser is a thick client. These are, the things that you download, unpack, and install all over your file system, thick clients, right? Thick clients usually escape out these types of paths because they know that it's used for phishing, for getting people to click these links and then giving away what's called a hash. And this hash is used to authenticate. Authenticate means authorize into the computer, right? So think about that. A tool that you're using, right? A part of your supply chain. Oh, Eric just put one down. Part of your supply chain actually is now being attacked to trick your users into giving credentials to people outside of the company, right? So when you think about this kind of goes back to my earlier stance where it's now we're operating in a new way. So people are thinking of new ways to be able to hack you. So you have to be on high alert. You got to raise the DEFCON level to 2, right? So yeah, that was the biggest thing about Zoom. If you haven't updated your Zoom, that thing that Eric just put down right there actually turns blue, allows you to click it, and it gives evil.server.com your hash, and whoever sits right there capturing hashes can replay your hash and hack you. Yes, they can hack you from that. It allows them to be able to become you, and maybe they install a keylogger or they install, a traffic sniffer, and that's where they get your credit cards and they get your.
So phishing still being a huge issue where, think twice before you click any link.
Yes.
That wisdom carries over heavy into the Zoom security here.
Yeah.
One more, again, guys, if everybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them right in the channel or raise your hand here. So I'm curious about something that I've always wondered is, I use a little video camera thing up here,
Oh yeah, I got one.
Why, what is the likelihood of somebody, being able to watch me through my camera? Is that so aside from the fact that I can start meetings and know that I'm not accidentally on camera, how important is it to cover your camera cover?
It is important. But also, if someone is able to see your camera, they're able to capture your keystrokes, they're able to turn on your microphone, they're able to take a screenshot of your screen. And I have these capabilities as a normal human, or not normal, but almost normal human. So yeah, right? Anybody could do it. I could do it today to your computer.
So you think? So explain that. What do you mean you could do that today? You could today. So I would look at me through my video camera. How would you do that?
Yeah. So I would send you. I'll say, hey, Jacob, I need help with my resume because life's hard right now. Can you help me with my resume? And then you're gonna go, okay, awesome. And then I'm gonna send you a Microsoft Word document. You're gonna open it up. It's gonna say, be careful opening up stuff from the internet because it could contain viruses. But you're gonna be like, Xavier would never hack me. I need to edit this. So you're gonna click enable editing. It's gonna pop up another Microsoft Word window. It's gonna go to that UNC path, that evil.server.com. Pass me your hash. And then either I'm going to crack your hash for your password and use your computer when we get on the same network, or I'm going to pass your hash directly back to your computer if I can, if we're on the same network for whatever reason. If I still live 2 doors down, I could trick your computer into getting on my network using my Wi-Fi pineapple, replay that hash, drop my agent. The agent will actually phone home to my command and control server out in the cloud. And then from there, I'd be able to send controls. And if you don't believe me, please go and add me on Instagram because I do this to myself on a fully patched Windows 10 machine.
I just don't know why we let you guys in our office. It just seems like just a terrible idea.
Because we keep away all the bad guys.
It's like having spiders to keep away mosquitoes,
There you go. Yeah. But every once in a while, you got to have a bird to come and eat a few of the spiders.
Spiders can still bite.
So we have DC 313 and MySec Detroit. It's a balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Tom, was this a question you're asking here? Speak to people using your computer. Oh, got it. Sorry, I get it now. Can you speak to that a little bit? So the question is about using your computer that you already have at home to connect to corporate networks, and what type of risks come with that.
Yeah, I think that's illegal. You may want to go and look at your employee agreement. You probably promised them not to do that. In the event that you did not promise them not to do that, you have an immature company with some poor policy problems. But beyond that, you are exposing your company to very grave risk. Not only do they have the potential of having their intellectual property lifted, not only by you, but also by whomever is controlling your computer, which means that nice neighbor from 2 doors down that used the Wi-Fi pineapple got the resume edited, right? That person is now on the quote-unquote Altimetrik Collider computer, and when you connect to the Altimetrik Collider VPN, that person is now using your computer to connect to the rest of Altimetrik, right? So, and maybe that person knows, maybe that attacker knows you have a report due, and they take that report and they inject it with bad data, and you go and you still edit it, and then you send that to, your higher up, and then they open it up. And then there's this, you see how now it's starting to spread where this attacker started off because of the kid's game. that the kid downloaded because he had to have the special Minecraft that had unlimited resources that I put together and I hacked to give him unlimited resources. But I also need to have all of the control of his computer, which is your computer, your personal computer that you're doing your work on, that you've now connected to your work network, that I have been aware of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I can start to use that as a beachhead to go further into your corporation, right? Or I just deploy my ransomware onto your computer while you're connected to the network, and it spreads like wildfire over the network, and your entire company is ransomed. I ask for 500,000, you give me 250, we call it even.
That's terrifying. But insightful.
Also, if you have a computer from your company and you do take it home, do not let your kids use it because you are still responsible. And if they go to bad things, you went to bad things.
Yeah, that's
And
really good advice.
That could be offensive things, or that could be, encrypting things.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then Ryan, good question here. So Ryan's wondering, just given hiring slowdowns at companies, you're kind of seeing this combination of companies shifting quickly to remote or more remote, while at the same time probably understaffed or under-resourced. Can you just kind of speak to that at all? Like any kind of strategies for companies to shore up that gap in the meantime? Would you recommend working with an outside consultant, or I don't know, how would you recommend doing that?
I say if you don't have enough people, you're one of two types of companies. Either you don't have enough people and you don't have enough money, right? Which is really scary. Or you don't have enough people, you have a boatload of money, and you just can't find the people that you need. So I'm going to address the second one first because it's a little easy. You kind of touched on it earlier. You get an outside group. You get a consulting group, either MSP or MSSP, so a master service provider or a master security services provider, and you get a master services agreement in place with an MSA. That's how I like to work with my customers. I give you an MSA, you give me $10,000-$20,000, and we work from that pot. And we find tasks that actually are high impact and low cost that won't consume a lot of the resources that you have on your end, so that we're able to work with you effectively, but still drive down that risk in your environment, even if it means we just created new policies that you now have to enforce and have put logging in place for you to be able to enforce it and demonstrate the enforcement, right? If you take on those small projects bit at a time, you go really far. So people who are running short on sysadmins and don't have a security budget, that gets really, really dangerous. That is dangerous. And I would say that security is every person's job. And when you don't have systems administrators to keep your systems patched, you have to think about your network the same way that I talked about earlier. What you want to do is treat your network in a way in which you are assuming breach. This is the best advice that I can give you. You have to assume that the attackers are on your network. If you assume that the FBI is watching every single thing you do, you make sure you keep your webcam closed, you unplug your mic, you leave your computer where it needs to be left, you take it off the network when it doesn't need to be on the network. You do things that are a bit extreme. You wear a tinfoil hat. You have to work a little bit harder on the human level to be able to actually shore up your hardening. So you got to make sure that the mail that you read, the links that you click, every single thing. Remember, I told you, you could take a brand new Windows 10 computer, turn Defender off, plug it up to the internet on a network that has no open ports on ingress, go to Facebook, go to Google, go do banking, and don't have to worry about being hacked. So we're not saying that the internet is just some wild and crazy dangerous place. At the moment you plug into it, something bad happens. It takes a human to infect a computer in some fashion, unless the computer is just out of date, which then again is the human's fault because the computer wants to keep itself up to date. So if left to its own devices, a brand new Windows 10 machine plugged in will just keep itself updated with the latest patches. And if you don't go anywhere, then you should be okay.
How about, so just to add on to that, security software for amateur, for normal folks that are using their computer and thinking about this, do you have suggestions in terms of, antivirus software?
Defender is a really, really good, easy, free one to start. They have like ATP, Advanced Threat Protection.
What's
They
it called?
do real-time protection. Defender. Yep, Windows Defender. It comes built into Windows. So I would say that's a good place to start. I don't want to say one agent or another. I actually have my own, partner that I work with, where we deploy EDR, endpoint detection response agents that use SentinelOne. And I know SentinelOne has a very good relationship and history in the industry. So I would say that's maybe something that people should look into, but I'm biased because I believe that the agent that I would deploy in has a little bit more of power than just any particular AV. So nevertheless, yeah. So from Anon, should people help companies by white hat hacking into their systems? Yes. So white hat hacking means that they didn't go in, they didn't do anything malicious, which means they didn't grab any hashes, they didn't grab any passwords, they didn't turn on any mics, they didn't turn on any webcams. They were
That's
nice.
As opposed to black hat hacking, right?
Right. Someone who's going to watch your keyboard, watch your screen, turn on your webcam, all the mean stuff, right? So if someone sees a vulnerability, says, hey, this thing has an open port, it's running a service that's unpatched, I was able to exploit it using this exploit, and here's the proof that I was able to cat out this file, and they stop. They write that report up, take screenshots, send it to security immediately. Yes, they should do that. We need more of that. And there are platforms that support that, things like HackerOne, and there's another one I can't think of right now. But yeah, HackerOne.
Platforms that facilitate white hat hacking?
Yes.
Whoa.
And then there's platforms that facilitate gray hat hacking. I can't say black hat, but gray hat hacking, like Zerodium, which is a platform that if you find a bug in an iPhone, you get north of $1 million for. But they don't report it to Apple. They go and they sell it to the Kremlin, right, for $10 million, because the Kremlin needs that because of that pesky journalist.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
But not altogether too surprising.
That's the dark side.
So we're at 12:53. We got started a few minutes late, so we can keep chatting for a few minutes.
There's another question. Oh no, that was from the anonymous one. Okay, I'm sorry.
If we have other questions, please think about that now, because we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. In the meantime,
Eric said he got a question.
Eric's about to send. Great. In the meantime, I was curious, or I guess we can just kind of summarize quickly. So basically what I'm hearing from you is that pretty much there's innumerable vulnerabilities that are potentially at play here, but kind of generally speaking, there are certain types of things that are easy to that are easy, low cost ways that you can protect yourself. For example, being really smart about what kind of links you click, and just being conscious of the fact that folks might be fishing for information. So when somebody is asking you for sensitive information over the phone or on your computer, whatever the case may be, like your social security number or your credit card number, you want to be really careful. I really like the suggestion of assuming that your system is breached. I think that's, for me, that just makes a lot of sense. So just kind of treating things as if somebody's already hacked into my camera, well, then I should close my camera, turn my microphone off, etc. I really like that suggestion. Not sure exactly what there's question meant, but it sounds like you can follow up with them, which is great. Yeah, any other, just kind of in summary, obviously, keeping your protection software up to date, not using a personal computer for work stuff, not letting your kids use your computer.
Right. And just ultimately remembering that you are the most powerful tool in any security organization. You are better than any antivirus. You are better than any hacker. You know why? Because I need you to click the link. I need you. as a hacker, I need you. So you are the
You're like
strongest.
the Smokey Bear of hacking. Only you can prevent.
I got two more.
Fires.
I got two more questions. What extreme lengths should companies go to secure their systems? Security and convenience are diametrically opposed. So at the point in which convenience is absolutely lost, you might want to tune back on security, right? Like if you have 5 factors of authentication that are all based on time, right? Because that's the 6th factor. You got some people who may not be, who hands may not be as fast as the next. You may have a stroke victim, or, you know, someone who's recovered from a stroke who may not be able to type those codes in as fast. Whereas like a gamer who can use both, who was ambidextrous basically, whereas like unhuman could just type it in no problem, right? And so you want to make sure that you don't set policies up that alienate any specific group within your organization. You want to make sure that you're compassionate with your policy development, and also, you know, you want to make sure that strong enforcement of policy. So that, I think that's the most extreme thing that companies actually don't do, which is enforce the policies that they've actually bought from some consulting company. They don't even enforce them. So like if people, if you know, if your computer is supposed to not be connected to the VPN, if you're not doing company business, then, you know, don't connect your computer to the VPN. There's many people who would just leave their computer connected and go off about their day, right? So following directions, staying vigilant, those are all, you know, things you should think about. There's another question here. How should I get into white hat hacking with little experience? You should come to Altimetrik Collider on Wednesdays when all of this is over, and see me and Jacob, and I'll demonstrate how my document works.
and you're also going to be hosting content in the meantime, right?
Yes.
You guys have virtual content coming up?
I wanted to do a piece yesterday. I was unable to, but next Wednesday, I think I'm going to do a piece. So stay tuned.
Yep. So we'll be hosting those conversations in the meantime as well.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Xavier, could you tell us just a bit about your guys' YouTube show and what
Sure.
you're trying to do with that?
Sure. So I got a show called How They Got Hacked. HOWTHYGOTHACKED. How They Got Hacked. And what it does is it shows people how your favorite companies have gotten breached. Sometimes it's government agencies. Like we covered when the Border Patrol agent stuck in the thumb drive from the U.S. National who was at Mar-a-Lago, which actually infected the DHS's computer system that no one really wanted to report on, but it was amazing. That was just within the last year. So all the hacking news that is basically of the previous 6 days we cover, and it's on a Friday, 7:30. Go check us out on YouTube, howtheyGotHacked.com.
No, you do have howtheyGotHacked.com.
Nice. How they got hacked, Jacob, not how I got hacked. How you got hacked was opening up the document.
All right.
Yeah, but
the real link is now in the just keeping everyone on their toes, you know?
That's it. HowtheyGotHacked.com. And as you can see, Slack has gotten their life together and no longer lets you just put links into the chat box that go off to places that, you know, let people click on. You don't want to do that.
Mine's hyperlinked.
Oh, you gotta.
That's an update issue? I feel like I'm up to date. I don't know. Am I doing something bad?
I would update my client just to make sure.
I will do that.
I'm pretty sure mine just updated this morning with another update. There was 2 Zoom bugs that came out, so.
Nice. Or not nice, but good that they fixed it. Cool. So
Ed.
Indeed. So I have that's actually a good point. So HTTPS links, I use a browser now that every time a website does not have HTTPS, it warns me about the website. should I can I still go to websites that don't have HTTPS? I feel like that's like something like I find myself all the time. Like I need to do that because I need to use whatever thing it is. But then am I opening myself up to vulnerability?
You are opening yourself up to vulnerability.
So you just can't use any website that doesn't have HTTP?
You can, but you are opening yourself up to vulnerability. There are a multitude of things you can do that opens yourself up to vulnerability outside of cyber. Let's think about it. Going outside without a raincoat while it's raining. It's
so
like
I shouldn't enter any sensitive information into a website that's not HTTPS.
Like if it's like an 80-degree day and it's raining outside, like go outside without a coat on, like whatever, right? But like don't put yourself in any extreme conditions, so to speak, without proper protection. HTTPS is there to help you as the end user to keep your data from being seen by God knows who. Basically, it's almost like someone listening in on your phone line.
Okay.
And how cell phones made that a little harder.
Super interesting.
That's fun. I think we should start an entire thing.
Yeah, I think that like a cybersecurity. So for the folks in the room that are either interested in getting into cybersecurity or are already cybersecurity professionals, again, we highly recommend checking out two local groups, DC 313, that stands for DEF CON 313. You can find them on Meetup, probably elsewhere. Is Meetup the best, Xavier?
DC313.org gets you to the Meetup. Yep.
Great. So DC313, and then there's also MISEC, which is hashtag MISEC. So it's like Michigan Security.
Yep.
So
punch that into Google. That'll get you to the website, which I think is misec.com.
And Ryan is also posting the links here. So for the folks that are interested in kind of taking that next level step into really talking about the professional side of cybersecurity, we really recommend checking out those groups. DC313 is a little bit more focused on the hacking side of things, as I understand it, whereas MISEC is kind of more focused.
It's lecture based.
Lecture based is a little more professionally focused.
Yep.
So that's on the professional side, and then in terms of on the newbie side, if you're like me, you're just somebody at a company that has questions about cybersecurity and things. Definitely recommend using Xavier as a resource, either hiring him professionally at your company if you have the resources, or we will also continue to host more and more content like this because I think this is extremely productive. So what do you say we do this regularly?
Let's do it.
Also watch the YouTube show.
Please do.
How they got hacked, because that's very informative as well.
And it's fun.
Fantastic. Unless we have any more questions, we're gonna wrap up here, guys, and let you get on with your days. Or any final thoughts, Xavier?
Remember, you are the most powerful security tool on this planet. I need you as a hacker 100% of the time. It doesn't happen magically. It's not like the movies where I just get to type in an IP address and go hack. No, I had to work a little bit, and it takes you 100% of the time. It's going to take you. So remember that.